I'm confused a little bit about your comment this morning that you were still at the table negotiating. The Prime Minister seemed to suggest you weren't at the table negotiating. The union is saying that they will come back to the table when you put a new offer on the table. So I'm just wondering if you can clarify what's going on with the actual negotiations and if a new offer is coming from the government.
Well, thank you for the question. They are presently negotiating at the table. Everybody, all the parties are at the table.
So are you planning to come back with a new offer? And as my follow-up, I'm just curious when, if you would consider back to work legislation, and if not immediately, when that would come into play.
I will say that, of course, we call upon the PSAC to work with us to reach a deal, an agreement as quickly as possible. And it's in the interest of the public service and of Canadians. And the bargaining table is the best place where we can reach for a deal. And currently, negotiations are happening and exchanges are happening between both parties. And we will continue to put all efforts in to have those negotiations and to reach a deal.
Mylène Crête, La Presse.
Bonjour, ma question est pour vous, Madame Fortier.
Good morning. My question is for you, Madame Fortier. The government has in its plans tabling anti-scab legislation. And of course, this would, affect employees who are working from home. Thank you for the question. As you know, at this time, public servants who are in a strike position are following their union's instructions to picket. As to essential services, public servants are still at work providing those, and we are making every effort to continue to negotiate at the table. But they could disobey their strike vote, in which case you would allow them to continue to work and be paid. At this time, they are not being paid. If it's not an essential service, they're not being paid by the government in that they are in a strike position. Maybe I have not explained things carefully. Those who are on picket lines and are abiding by their union's instructions and are on the picket line are being paid by their union for picketing. Gillian Piper.
We've heard a lot about telework and these negotiations. Is the government prepared to let some workers work entirely remotely, as the union is hoping for?
Thank you for the question. And what I'm going to say at this time is that as we are implementing a modern workplace where employees have the flexibility to work from home 2 to 3 days a week, and we have made proposals on telework and other PSAC priorities at the time. And at the same time, we need to ensure that government can deliver services and make sure that our core purpose is to deliver services. Therefore, we will see what continues at the table.
During the pandemic, some workers did work remotely. Did you see a decline in productivity during that time? Is that part of the hesitancy around doing remote work more permanently?
I think that we have been from by necessity to work from home to now delivering services with a hybrid model that is in transformation. Therefore, we're evaluating how to best deliver those services, and by bringing forward, letting some of the public servants working from home 2-3 days a week is what we are presenting at this time. And we will continue to look at how we can transform how we best deliver the services to Canadians, which is our core purpose.
Valérie Michaela Baines, Radio-Canada.
You say that the unionized employees' demands just are not realistic, talking about salaries of 9%. At this time, as you've seen with the third-party Public Interest Commission, the recommendation is 9%, and that's the offer on the table now. We know that the Public Service Alliance of Canada has also shared that. We should remember remember that 1 year ago, we presented a first demand, an economic offer, and PSAC had rejected that. And for the last weeks, we've been in mediation to arrive at a deal that is competitive and fair for public servants and reasonable for Canadians. And we will continue to discuss at the bargaining table. In absolute value, what does a public servant earn on average, and how does that compare with what you've offered? There are 150,000 public servants who are at the table. We're in discussions with 4 groups with different salary levels. So we could call upon the technical team to explain the details. But what is important is we've put in a good offer at the table that values the work done by public servants, and we continue to have the objective that they have a fair and competitive salary that is reasonable for taxpayers.
Without getting into numbers, I'm wondering if you can talk about how far apart the two sides are from reaching an agreement, and also if you can talk about the tone of negotiations right now.
Well, I will say I'm, of course, convinced that we are putting all the efforts together to reach a deal. That's where best deals are made, is at the table. And we've been working very hard for the last 2 weeks in mediation and have the effort to continue that effort to reach a deal. And I will say that as we are negotiating, I'm not privy to share where we are in gaps or whatnot. I think right now the focus is to find compromise and work together.
And the Prime Minister said today that you put forward an offer on Monday and the union never got back to you. And the union says it did get back to you, made a counteroffer. Can you clear that up? What's going on with that?
Well, again, as you know, in negotiations, there's an offer and then there's a counteroffer, and that's what we're working on right now. And at the table, there will be many exchanges. Therefore, we focus right now on making sure the parties are looking at how these offers will get to one deal. There have been exchanges for the past 2 weeks, and we will continue to do that.
Olivier Ferron-Boissé, TVA.
Oui, bonjour.
Good afternoon. For Ms. Gould.
Durer cette grève-là avant que les arriérés, le backlog,
last before
viennent
the backlog actually becomes a threat for Canadians, that they relive the nightmare they have lived before? Thanks for the question. First, we have learned a great deal in our Canada Services Centres since last year, and we don't expect there to be lineups as we had last year with the passport situation. Now, what we want to do is make sure that for every day that the strike lasts, we, be able to deal with the backlog. In the law, if a passport is not deemed urgent, we cannot process it. So it's going to depend on the duration of the strike. But as I mentioned in my remarks, after 1 week, we're going to have, we'll be processing applications that are still in the system, but we don't know as of today or in the next few days how many new applications we will be receiving. Canadians can continue to send in their applications, but the systems can't process those applications. So it will depend on the length of the strike. Well, in your opinion, would 3 weeks mean, say, 30,000 backlog? And will you have lost what you've caught up on since the last situation? Can we avoid a nightmare? Well, we hope that we will not relive what we lived last year in the Canada Service Centres. But it could be that there are picket lines drawn up in front of those offices. So managers have ways to ensure that Canadians continue to enter the centres to get services. But as I mentioned in my remarks, we receive about 85,000 applications per week. and we have a capacity to process about 160,000, 200,000 passports. That's a healthy inventory. But if after 1 week we have a backlog of 85,000 or more, then we'll see.
Minister Fortier, I'm trying to understand why your government is resistant to enshrining the right to work from home or to telework, given your previous comments and how well it worked during the pandemic. Why don't you allow those things to be enshrined in a collective agreement?
Currently, as I said earlier with another question, we are implementing a hybrid work model to best deliver services, having a modern workplace that gives the flexibility to public servants to work from home 2 to 3 days a week. And we have made those proposals on telework and other PSAC priorities during this current negotiation. And at the same time, we want to make sure that we continue to offer services to Canadians. That's our core priority.
A follow-up for Minister Gould. Your criteria for what is an essential passport application right now, there are going to be lots of people out there who have holidays planned, travel planned, that don't meet those criteria you've set. What do you say to a family that's going to Disney World next week waiting for their passports?
Yeah, Glenn, it's a really good question, and unfortunately, it's not something that I have set. It's legislated in law as what an urgent or humanitarian passport is considered to be, and you know, I feel very terrible for them. You know, I think, like all of my colleagues here, we're very hopeful that we're going to come to a negotiated agreement with the Public Service Alliance of Canada expeditiously, so that the impact on Canadians is minimal. So I'm very hopeful that bargaining will continue, because you know, unfortunately, as legislated and as outlined with the union, if someone has a family vacation planned, it's not considered to be an essential service. And so, you know, I really, you know, continue to urge both parties. I mean, the government is there. We've been there since last June. And I hope that the union will continue to be there as well to reach this agreement, because ultimately it has an impact on Canadians.
Inès Lorbardo, Franco Presse.
Oui, merci.
I have a question for you, Madame Fortier. With the Official Languages Action Plan around the corner, a number of Francophone organizations are awaiting funding. What measures will you put in place to avoid any additional delays? As you know, that's a good question. And obviously, the government wants to continue to deliver services, but also all the programs that we want to keep up across the country. So we'll continue to make every effort at the bargaining table to reach a deal, so that we can pursue all of our activities and offer those services. A question for Mr. Fraser. You mentioned that there are about 1 million applications a year. Now, what are the delays for those applying for visas?
Is
it all right with you if I answer you in English?
So it's not 1 million per year. It's common for us to have more than 1 million applications in the inventory at any given moment. Far more than that come in over the course of a year, and we process them as they come in. So the number annually would be much higher. The precise nature of the delays for people who are awaiting visa processing, for example, will depend on the nature of the labor disruption. We do have access to the international network of workers at IRCC, who will continue to process what they can, with a prioritization, of course, on emergency situations where a person's life may be threatened. I do expect that the impact will be severe, depending on the length of any work stoppage. However, the full scale of the disruption has certain unknown facts that make it difficult to assess with certainty the precise timelines or delays an applicant may face.
Ryan Tumulty, National Post.
Yeah, Minister Fortier, I'm wondering, there's some lack of clarity. PSAC is basically telling its members that it's unlikely they will see wage cutbacks during the strike, that there will be clawbacks after the strike, but that during the strike, they shouldn't expect to see a reduction in their wages. Is that accurate, or should people striking expect that their next paycheck will be less?
Well, the ones that will be continuing to work in their positions will continue to be paid. The ones that will be going on that picket line will be given a pay from their union. So they will continue to be paid by the union, an amount per day.
Sorry, PSAC is telling its members, though, that they're unlikely to see a pay stoppage even while they're on strike and off the job, and that a clawback won't happen until after the fact. Can you clarify that?
I will just make sure that I have the right technical information from my colleagues, and I will come back to you if you give me, to make sure that I give you the right information. Thank you.
David Reevely, The Logic.
Thank you. Mona Fortier, could you talk a little bit about some of the impacts on trade and goods movement from this? I know frontline CBSA agents are not on strike, but some parts of CBSA are, and they must interact. The Canadian Grain Commission is apparently not doing export certifications, according to your information page. What are the consequences of this strike on those sorts of activities?
Well, as we said earlier, there has been, of course, an understanding with prior to the striking activity with PSAC to identify which would be essential services and which will not be. Therefore, there will be an impact in those services that are not essential, and that is what is happening. So therefore, there will be some impact on this.
I'm after something more specific than that. Clearly there's some impact, but what sorts of particular goods will be affected by this? Where will imports or exports be slowed down?
I don't have the current specific information, but I think that is a good question that we can come back to you through a technical brief. Thank you.
Stephanie Levitz, Toronto Star.
Hi, I guess my question's for Minister Fortier as well. I'm wondering if you can respond to the official opposition that says that the fact that we've gotten to a strike is a measure of incompetence on the part of the federal government not being able to avert something it saw coming for months.
Well, again, it's important to say that we need to make sure that public servants are paid fairly and that it's a competitive also pay. And that's what we've been concentrating on. A year ago, we tabled our first offer. And since then, we've been trying to make sure that public servants have a wage deal that will be fair and also at the same time reasonable for Canadians. And that's what we're focusing on at this time.
And then just as my follow-up, if we understand sort of the public service to be the barometer for the private labor market, what's your message to workers more broadly then? That at this time of inflation, they too ought not expect wage hikes that match inflationary pressures as they see their own grocery bills and other expenses go up?
Well, the thing is, we have put forward a deal, an offer, I would say, that is good for public servants and also fair. And also that will make sure that it's reasonable for Canadians. We have a current economy that we see is changing, and we want to make sure, of course, that we follow that economy. And as I said earlier in my remarks, I think it's important that we get to this wage offer that will not compromise what other jurisdictions are also working on and putting pressure on those jurisdictions and the private sector. So I think that we have the right path forward, and we will, of course, work very hard to get to a deal.